Hey guys, welcome to Talks with Mer. Today we are going to talk about my birth story, pregnancy and labor, and a little bit about homebound and what that looked like. And so today I just want to share with you guys my experience and hopefully encourage somebody out there. In order to really dive into my birth story and having allll, I need to share with you some of what happened prior. So John and I, we had just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, August 15th, and we had really thought about, okay, what does it look like for us to have kids? I really feel like we've got a routine set, rhythm set. We were doing weekly check-ins with each other, and so we just thought, why not bring a baby into this healthy environment that we feel that we've created? The Lord knew that John and I needed to have Miss allll Rose, and so we found out I had missed my period, and I had friends that were really encouraging me to take a pregnancy test. So I took a pregnancy test, found out that I was pregnant, which was crazy. So many emotions. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling excited. I wasn't frustrated or anything. I just couldn't believe that for John and I, it happened that easily, as we have had friends who we've walked alongside that have struggled. And so really knowing that this was a time that was ordained from the Lord. Like we didn't plan it. We couldn't have planned it. Like this was from God. From that point on, I had a pretty easy pregnancy. A little backstory to my periods, I had really rough periods, like my stomach, my cramps. Like the first day I had my period, I literally had to be home because I just did not feel well at all, like could not function. And so I was a bit worried that with pregnancy and with labor, it would either be like, because I experienced that type of situation with my periods, it either would be like pretty easy for me because I kind of know what it's like, or it would be like more intense than that. And I was really nervous about that. However, my pregnancy went really well. Didn't really have morning sickness. I had food aversions, eggs freaked me out, meat freaked me out. And yeah, I ate a lot of fruits, I ate a lot of veggies, I snacked a lot. I snack a lot in general, but when I was pregnant, I snacked a lot. And it was an excuse to snack because my body was working overtime. So anyhow, pregnancy went pretty smooth. I did have some hiccups after 20 weeks with some constipation that kept me home for about a week. That kind of going into the pregnancy, I was like, okay, if I got through that, then maybe this is just preparing me for the next step, which again was giving birth. And I, am one who has a low pain tolerance. And so I actually got a hold of Christian hypnobirthing, which if you're not a Christian, I still recommend it, as hypnobirthing is, they have hypnobirthing outside of the Christian part. However, it's really just speaking life into things. Instead of looking at the negative, you're looking at the positive. You really have positive affirmations over yourself, over your baby. You're believing for these things early on. And so throughout my pregnancy, I was listening to these positive affirmation soundtracks by Christian hypnobirthing. And I was also listening to these encouraging scriptures and the breathing exercises that she had done on her app. And I actually had gotten it during Easter. She had done like an amazing deal. And so I 100% recommend Christian hypnobirthing for anyone who maybe struggles with your thoughts, struggles with fear, that she really helps help align. And it's really just speaking things out loud or listening to things and allowing your environment as you're preparing to have your baby be filled with positivity and with life. Again, not speaking death over things, but speaking life and believing for the best. Yes, there's complications that happen. People experience complications, but it's believing, okay, whatever happens is going to happen, and it's going to be a good thing no matter what, because the outcome is my baby. I'm going to see my baby, and I'm believing for that. That being said, I went into my 38 weeks pretty confident that, okay, yes, I'm scared, I'm a little fearful, but guess what? I can do this. And I was kind of believing too for a pain-free birthing experience, as well as I had listened to some of the pain-free birthing stories, and really was believing for that for myself as well too. John and I had went on a date night on a Monday. It was July 31st or August 1st maybe. So August 3rd was Adelie's due date. That weekend prior had gone out into a celebration thing that our town was throwing, and we were hanging out, walking around. I mean, obviously I was sore, I couldn't really walk too much, but I really was like, there's no way this baby is coming this week. And I was kind of getting myself a little worked up because, you know, if your due date is on the 3rd, I already had people asking me that weekend, oh, baby hasn't come yet. And I'm like, clearly clearly she hasn't come yet. And so I was wrestling as I was thinking about going to work, and people constantly asking me, oh, any signs yet? Any Braxton Hicks or Braxton Hicks? Whatever. And I was like, nope, not experiencing anything. I literally have no clue. This baby could come in a couple weeks. Who even knows? Therefore, John and I went on a date night Monday night. He wanted to take me out one last time before having our family, before having Adelie. And that kind of projected us into Tuesday morning, which is the start of my labor. Tuesday morning, I woke up and I had some weird fluids in my underwear, and I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this? Definitely a little bit more than normal. And so I cleaned myself up, got new underwear on, and I dabbed, and it was red. And I was still experiencing some fluid leakage. And I was like, okay, could this be the beginning? So I called the birthing center. The birthing center that we were using, it is 30 miles away. We knew that if I was having early signs, we should call the birthing center and kind of let them know and see what we should do, because we didn't want to drive back and forth. But we also didn't want to be late in getting there and then have to start pushing right away. I called the birthing center and let my husband know. Woke him up and I was like, this isn't normal. So let's call the birthing center. So I called the birthing center, and they said that it's probably definitely early signs of labor. She said the best thing to do is to labor, especially in these early stages, at home, because once you get admitted, you would not be able to eat solids, and things are definitely limited. When you're at home, you know, it's more of a stress-free environment. You're able to do what you want to do in your own home setting. I did what she had told me to do, and she had given me like an hour timeline. So if I didn't feel baby moving in an hour, then I should probably go in. So I had done that, and within an hour, I didn't feel the baby moving. So I gave it another hour, and I still wasn't feeling baby moving. So I was a little concerned. So we had decided, okay, why don't we just go in just to make sure? And so as we're driving, I'm experiencing a little bit of crampiness, but nothing crazy, but it was definitely something new. And so I go in, and they get me all hooked up, and they put me in this room. It's not the room that I would give birth in, it's the evaluation room. So I go in the evaluation room, and the nurse was really nice, and she just had essentially said, you know, we're going to get you hooked up, whatnot. So I could see my contractions, which was really cool. They were about 5-7 minutes apart, so nothing too crazy, and very inconsistent. I think even 10 minutes at some points. So it was not very consistent, but I was for sure having contractions, which I was kind of shocked by, because I was like, wow, this is what a contraction feels like. Okay, maybe I can do this. So she then tested me to see if my water broke, because she also thought that it was interesting that I was having that kind of leakage, and thought that for sure my water had broke. Well, they had decided, the nurse and my doctor, my OB, that my water hadn't broke, and that it would be best if I went home, and then to come in once my contractions were 3 to 5 minutes apart, and they were more consistent, and my pain was getting to the point where I couldn't really stand or function. So I said, okay. So I went home, let my boss know that I wouldn't be able to be at work that day, and decided to stay home, and was on an exercise ball, bouncing around, took some naps, really was just letting myself rest. And so My husband had went back to work, and I told him that if anything changed, I would let him know. That night, we go to bed, business as usual. I ended up waking up at 1 a.m. because of the pain I was feeling. So the contractions had definitely picked up a bit, and to the point where I couldn't fall back to sleep. Well, then it became like 2 in the morning, and I came out to the living room because I was experiencing more contractions more closely and a little bit more intense. I was bouncing on the exercise ball, got some lights on out here, and really just tried to let the contractions pass through and try to go as long as I could. Well, 3 o'clock approached, and I eventually told my husband that I think that we should go in. My contractions, as I was timing them, were very much 3 to 5 minutes apart, pretty consistent. And with the drive time, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the safer end. And so, of course, it was downpouring outside at 3 in the morning as we're having to do this drive. The hospital bags were packed weeks in advance, which I will share with you guys my packing list and my tips regarding packing, but that's for a future date. So we go up to the evaluation room, which I'm clearly having contractions, and they have me waiting for about an hour. And mind you, we get there about 6 o'clock-ish, I think, or maybe 5:30 it was. And my mom, I wanted to be present there, as to me, my mom is a huge support, and I know that and John and I had agreed that it would help the both of us, as my mom could not only support me, support John, help give him some pointers and how to support me. And so I found that to be helpful to have my mom and my husband both there. So my mom came up and met us, and we eventually got into the room because they had said, okay, your contractions are pretty close together, we'll put you in the room. Go into the room about 7:30, I think it was, and my mom had gotten there just shortly after 7:30. And we got comfortable, got situated. I actually had a birth plan. So John and my mom were kind of getting things situated with my diffuser, getting oils, getting the atmosphere set, having the lights kind of turned down, getting some soft music in the background. I listened, like I said, to Christian hypnobirthing all throughout my pregnancy. So I was playing her tracks of encouraging scriptures. She even had like music, I think just like music as well, positive affirmations, different things like that. So, I'm feeling pretty good. My contractions were getting, again, more intense, and I'm really letting my body relax. The more that I tensed up, the more pain I felt, which was just kind of this cycle. Christian hypnobirthing, she actually talks about this in some of the courses that she has as well too. And so I knew that I needed to really let myself relax, needed to let myself not be tense, so that way it wasn't painful and then creating this pain cycle. At this time, it was about 10 o'clock, and I had decided that I wanted to go inside a bathing tub. I had the luxury of having a really nice suite at the birthing center that we went to, which is also why we chose to go to this birthing center, and had a really nice tub that had nice lights, jets in it. And so I had went inside the tub to allow myself to relax. I had some oils inside the tub, and that really helped kind of soothe and calm the environment. So my husband came in there with me, and I sat in there for about 30 minutes to probably an hour. And that, again, really helped to relax and soothe me. My contractions felt a bit better. And so it was really nice to be in there. I decided to get out because I just needed to change my position. I was starting to get a bit uncomfortable. So got back out onto the bed, repositioned myself. And about 11 o'clock is when my contractions were getting to the point where I just could not really tolerate them. And so I could remember one of my contractions that I was experiencing, I literally was dry heaving into a bucket, couldn't puke because I hadn't eaten anything, to the point where I knew that if this was how it was going to continue to be, I just couldn't do it. That's my experience. I also know I have a very low pain tolerance, and I think my body knows that. Then decided, okay, I want the epidural. So I had gotten the epidural as I knew that would be best for me. That was my decision. I had went in with the mindset that with my birth plan that whatever happens. I wanted the option of the epidural, but I wanted to do more of a natural birth, but I didn't want to shut these options out. The epidural really did make me feel defeated in the moment. I remember kind of tearing up when I had made that decision after I was dry heaving, and my mom just really comforting me and letting me know, you are strong. Like, the fact that you're giving birth, like, this is a lot for you. And so no matter if you got the epidural or not, you are a strong, courageous woman. And so I just needed to hear that, because I really did want to go the more natural route. And I really envied these stories of people who had a natural birth, who gave birth at home. And I know the benefits of that. And I know that there are many cons to getting the epidural, but for me, that's what I felt peace about in that moment. And so I wouldn't take that back, but that's my experience. And so I had gotten the epidural. I should say too, I haven't really given an update in terms of how dilated I was. So when I had went in that morning, I was really only dilated at a 3, and maybe even a little less than a 3. It was like a close 3. And so all throughout, I was not really gaining anything in terms of my dilation. And so at that 11 o'clock mark, they had checked me, and I think I was like maybe a 3.5, 4. And so I kind of knew, again, that's why I wanted the epidural. So I got the epidural. I champed through that. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. I just kind of knew I was focusing on the end goal, which the end goal was to get this baby out, because this baby was coming out one way or the other. So I knew that had to be the end goal. Then after the epidural, it took about 15, 30 minutes for it to kick in, and I was feeling amazing. I was over the moon. I was like, okay, I can take a nap now. I was just kind of chilling out. And so it really helped relax me. And the nurses did a really good job of just comforting me. I was able to have some Jell-O, some popsicles, just again, really enjoy my time. It was about 3 o'clock that the nurse that I had currently have all that morning was going to be leaving. And so she had checked me again and had seen that I was only, again, at maybe a 5, but that was even kind of pushing it, I think she was saying. And so the other nurse came in, my previous nurse was kind of educating her on where I was at. So the nurse then had checked me so that she had an understanding, and said, yeah, it didn't seem like I was really all that dilated, in the sense of this baby was coming anytime soon. And I had asked, well, when do you think that I would maybe start pushing? And they said, well, the previous nurse had said it would be a few hours. So I got this new nurse, and she said, okay, she was younger, around my age, super great, super amazing. She literally was a really great nurse to work with. And so she said that we're going to get you in different positions. We're kind of going to get you to get that baby kind of active a bit, so that way we can kind of get this thing going a little bit. So that's what she did. She came in every 10 minutes to kind of switch around my position. Mind you, the last nurse left at 3 o'clock. Dilation was only a 4, maybe a 5. So a half an hour passes, and she kind of comes in a little frantically into the room and just says that baby's heart rate isn't responding well to my contractions. And so she wanted to flip me over on my other side. Well, 5 minutes later, she said that she needed to get me on a different side, and my one leg was numb because of the epidural, so I wasn't able to move. I was bed bound at this point. And I should note that I was able to do an exercise ball in the morning and do different types of things up until I got the epidural. Once I got the epidural, I was bed bound. And so she just had me in different positions in the bed. She had to have another staff come in. And at this point, it's about 3:40, 3:45-ish. And I was a little concerned, like, okay, what's happening? It seems like she was a little, not frantic, like it wasn't like she was like fearful or anything, but I could tell like she was kind of determined about something. And so my mom and I are kind of looking at each other, and within a span of like 5 minutes, I had all these staff just kind of come into the room. There was about 4 different staff, and then a doctor had come in who was the delivery doctor, and so the labor doctor. And so I was starting to think, okay, something's happening. And I had checked the baby monitor next to me, and it had showed that the baby's heart rate was all the way down to 70 something. And so I was kind of freaking out, like, is baby okay? Like internally freaking out. I'm like, is baby okay? And then I'm like, am I okay? They then put an oxygen mask over me, and I look over at my mom, and I just remember being like, oh my goodness, am I going to be okay? Is baby going to be okay? What is happening? But again, all of this is kind of going inside my head, and it's happening very quickly. Next thing you know, they get the mask on me, like I had said. I get my legs up, and they tell me to start pushing. And I could not believe that baby was on the way, literally on the way, coming out of the birth canal. And so I pushed for probably less than 5 minutes, and she had come out. I remember my mom saying, oh my goodness, look at that head of hair. And John was like, I cannot believe this. And so then they put baby on my chest, and I'm just looking at her in just awe of, did this really just happen? So Adelie came on her due date, August 3rd at 3:55 p.m. What are the odds? We came up with Adelie because of a dream that I had early on in my pregnancy. Even before we knew her gender, I actually had a dream that I had triplets, and one of the names was Adelie Rose or Adelie Marie. And my middle name is Rose Marie, which made it really special. Adelie came at 7 pounds, 11 ounces, and 19.25 inches long, which she was just beautiful, every ounce of her. And we just fell in love with her the moment we saw her. And it was really nice because my mom was able to come back to the house, get things situated that night. John and I stayed at the hospital with her at the birthing center, and we got no sleep, just amazed by how this beautiful gift. One moment it was just the two of us, and now it's the three of us, and figuring out life and what this new normal looks like for us. And yeah, so we were able to be discharged shortly after the 24-hour mark. I believe it was like 26 hours is when we discharged. We wanted to get home as soon as possible, figure out what rhythms and routines look like now that we have a baby, and we loved it. We got home, my mom helped us out for a few days, and really was just super huge support, super hands-on with us, and allowing us to figure out and navigate how to love on this baby, how to care for her, how to know her needs, with also taking care of our household. So my mom made a lot of meals for us and did a lot of things too. That night when we got home, we just were in awe, couldn't stop looking at her, and just couldn't believe that marked the journey of now starting a family and what that looked like for us. I want to conclude with some helpful tips. And so I did write these down because I found them to be super helpful, and I won't just remember them off the top of my head. So some takeaways, some helpful tips that I feel would be helpful for somebody who maybe is considering having kids, who's already pregnant, or maybe who's already had a kid or two and you didn't really have a great experience. Maybe these can help you out for your future experiences. So first is, it's not as bad as it seems. You need to trust yourself, and you need to trust your body. Your body knows what it's doing, and you need to trust that you know what you're doing, even though you've never maybe done this before, or maybe you've done this before and it didn't go as planned. You need to trust that your body is going to direct and lead you and give you the cues that you need. And so no matter what happens, no matter what decisions you make, you are a strong mama. You are a courageous mom. Giving birth is not an easy thing, no matter which way you do. You know, I've heard even from some friends, and even what I experienced, that I took the easy way out. There is no easy way out in birth. I think, yes, there are some things that you can experience that can make it harder and difficult, but by no means do I feel that anyone's experience was easy. I know even I've said, yeah, well, it was pretty easy, but it really wasn't easy. I think one, it was my perspective, and two, I took the steps that I needed to so that I felt comfortable and at peace, which therefore made it feel easy. Two, you want to communicate with your partner or your support staff, support who you have there, outside of the nursing staff, outside of who's in the facility, but your support. So like my mom, my husband, you want to communicate with them and make sure that they know how to love and serve you well. And so, you know, in the process of, you know, as you're going through your labor and whatnot, you want them to be able to know how to love you, to know how to serve you, and to know the things that you want, the things that you don't want. And how that can be is through a birth plan. I wanted to set up my husband and my mom well and set them up for success, and not that they would fail me, but that I made my expectations clear, and therefore they were able to succeed those expectations. And so I did that through a birth plan. I had given my mom and my husband, John, a copy of my birth plan, and they looked it over prior to me even going into the hospital, weeks prior when I had completed it. And so the birth plan, there's a ton on Pinterest that you can look up. If you want a sample of a birth plan, I can show you mine. Mine is pretty general in this, well, not general, but it's just pretty much like this or this or this. I give a lot of options, as I didn't want to be set. I don't want the epidural, or I do want the epidural, because I had never experienced this before and I just didn't know going into it. And so it was really helpful for my mom. I will say though that having a birth plan and just handing that over to your nursing staff may not be the best case scenario. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times, in my experience that I had with the nursing staff, they seem to really appreciate that even though I had created a birth plan, it wasn't these expectations that I was placing on them that they had to do. And yes, they should support and go with what I want to do as I'm comfortable and feel that it's convenient. But a lot of times how these nursing staff can feel when we give them a birth plan is that they have to do this, and if they don't meet this expectation, they've essentially failed us and failed our birth. And we don't want them to feel that way. We don't want them to, to have to be strained to that. And you can, of course, articulate your beliefs, what you want. But I think doing that in a different way than just handing them this huge document of, here, this is what you need to follow. Because what they want to do and what they should do is in the moment be able to, we should trust them and trust their expertise, that they've done this before and that they know what they're doing and that they've been trained on this stuff. And so we've got to assume the best out of them and assume that they have our best interest. And honestly, they want this to go just as smoothly as we want it to. I know that if I were a nurse, the last thing I want is to have a complicated birth. And so they are going to do their best in comforting us, making the experience as best as it can be. And so I know that can be contradicting a little bit, but that's just from my experience, what I would give as a piece of advice. Another point I would like to make, another hint, is that it is your birth story. Do not get your mind clogged up with other people's experiences, with their plans. Again, I had watched videos, countless videos on pain-free birth, and I was really hoping and believing for that. However, I had to come to the realization that this is my birth story, that just because someone experienced it this way or somebody experienced it this way doesn't mean that that's how I'm going to experience it, and doesn't mean that how my birthing experience happened is wrong or not as good or invalid, when really everyone's birth story is unique. I could bet you that there is no one birth story that is the same amongst any people, amongst any person, even people who have multiple kids and who have given birth to multiple kids. Their birth story, is a high percentage, I would think, is not the same amongst those birthing experiences. And so again, know that your birth experience is unique to you, and so you need to cherish that. You need to hold on to that, and don't let yourself get clogged up again by the expectations that you have on yourself because of the things you've seen on social media, the things that you've heard. Even hearing my story, don't get yourself caught up and say, wow, this is how well hers went. But see it as an opportunity to encourage yourself and to educate yourself, but not to say, I want mine to go exactly like that, because essentially you're setting yourself up for failure and you don't want to do that. Don't fear anything. You can do it. Again, you're going to have fear. I know that's a pretty cliche saying, but positive affirmations throughout your birthing experience, even throughout your pregnancy, is so key. Again, I have a very low pain tolerance, and so I could have easily got caught up in the fear that I could not do this. But all throughout my pregnancy, I feel that I set myself up well by listening to things and And even when I would hear other people's birthing experiences and they had negative things, I just chose to not listen to those things. Or I just said, those things aren't really helpful for me as I'm preparing for birth. So if it's okay, I just would rather wait to hear your experience until after, if it's one that is negative. And again, that may hurt some people, but they need to know that you are trying to make sure that you are in the right headspace and the right mindset as you go into birth and into the labor process without, again, being clogged by all these other things. I think that it's huge to set up your environment for what makes you comfortable, for what makes you feel stress-free. And so my facility that we utilize allowed diffusers and oils. Some nurses prefer that you don't use oils just because of the sensitivity that some nurses have and even allergies. So you do want to ask your nursing staff. However, I was able to use oils. So I had Lavender and Gentle Baby. So Lavender by doTERRA, and then Young Living had the Gentle Baby. And I really loved these oils a lot in the room. It really, again, helped set the room, helped set the mood, and I had it kind of on a table right by me. And then I also had a speaker with music playing in the background, very soft, soothing music, not very loud, just to kind of help fill the empty space as, maybe people weren't talking, there wasn't much chatter going on, or just when I felt like I just really needed the room to just be at peace, at rest. It really helped a lot. Again, like I said, the birth plan, I believe that a birth plan is beneficial, but be careful with how you go about that with your nursing staff. You don't want to give them the wrong impression that they need to follow this thing verbatim. You want to allow some wiggle room within your birth plan. All right, that's all that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening to my birth story, from my pregnancy all the way to my labor. I will be having some more videos coming up about some pregnancy essentials, some baby registry do's and don'ts, some hauls that I have, along with some of my postpartum experiences. So you want to stay tuned for that. Love you guys so much, and thanks again for your support. Make sure to like and follow, subscribe, whatever it is, to my YouTube, as I would love the support. So thanks guys so much. Quick blooper. Adelie woke up from her nap, so she's gonna have to go on the little play mat. Say hi. Say hi. Say hi.